All right, we are going to war again. Get a load of this. This is a late night emergency update. House Resolution 559 has basically guaranteed that we are about to go to war with Iran. This is a bombshell. I'm telling you right now, the markets have no idea the train wreck that is coming. This is going to change the game. We have Yemeni missiles striking Israel. Remember those guys who said, no, we're not at war with Yemen yet because they haven't sent the memo. Well, they just sent us another memo. Yemen is definitely at war with Israel, and now we got 6 refueling planes hovering above Saudi Arabia that are likely getting ready to supply fuel to fighter jets coming from Israel that are going to turn that place upside down. And when they do that, all hell is going to break loose. We have the Iraqi resistance pledging to eliminate all American troops. Remember when Skousen said that these are just being used as bait to bring us into a broader conflict? People have no idea what's coming. Take a look at how many ships are conglomerated around the Eastern Mediterranean. All of these ships in just the Eastern Mediterranean. This doesn't even count the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. My friends, people have no idea. The average person has no idea what is about to happen. Israeli ships are now deployed to the Red Sea. We have Hamas digging tunnels that are 65 yards deep. 65 yards. There's no way you can touch these. Probably not even with a nuke, all right? We have Hezbollah about to give a message at 3 o'clock on Friday, Lebanese time, so that's probably going to be sometime in the wee hours of the morning here in North America, tomorrow night or Friday early in the morning. And it's expected that they're going to give some sort of unofficial declaration of war. As we know, nobody declares war anymore. It's very likely that Hezbollah shot down an IDF drone, another one. The IDF is getting their asses handed to them in the Gaza Strip, because what most people don't realize is that the same tactics that are being implemented in Ukraine with the drones that hover over, with the bomblets and the ordnance and the grenades, that same tactic is now going to be utilized in mass in Gaza City. And when the Israeli people start to see the casualty rates come in, I don't know what the response is going to be. It could go one of two ways. It could work to galvanize the population for a broader war, or it could send a lot of those dual citizens packing. I guess time will tell, and we're going to find out in a very short period of time. The Saudi defense minister is currently in D.C. Saudi Air Defense is awaiting approval. Basically, they're going to be getting Patriot missile defense systems. So Saudi's speaking with a fourth tongue. The House of Saud, you know how they are. They're looking out for number one. So they're going to pretend to sympathize with the plight of the Palestinians whilst putting, missile defense in their country because they're worried about Yemen. Now we got Lindsey Graham saying that he wants to go scorched earth, total war, civilians don't matter. I tell you, the vampires are out in Washington right now. Iran is calling on countries to stop sending oil to Israel, a net importer of energy. They would be totally screwed if that happens. So that is a card that could potentially be played by countries who might not necessarily be antithetical to Israel, adversarial to Israel, but they may do something. They have to do some sort of gesture, like Jordan today, who pulled out its ambassadors and expelled the Israeli ambassador. They're doing these little things even though they're allowing the Americans to utilize their airstrips for military planes. North Korea says it's going to send even more weapons to Hamas. I tell you, it's a tangled web we weave. The Egyptian army is now moving tanks towards the Rafah border crossing. Not their good stock, their old stock. I'm going to go into greater depth for all of these stories. I'm just trying to give you the crash course here because time is money, all right? Putin is sending a special envoy to meet in Iran, or to Iran, to meet the head of the Security Council. All of this stuff is just happening fast. China is sending an immense amount of planes right now into Taiwan. I'll show you the maps. They're probably, I'm not going to spill the beans, but I'll tell you exactly what this is about. I think this is all coordinated All of the Axis countries, as we refer to them, are coordinating this right now. I do believe the United States had a failed nuclear test, a failed Minuteman missile test, so 3 out of 4 this year. I guess 3 out of 4 ain't bad. That means that it's very likely that 75% of our nukes, if we were to shoot them, only 75% would work or less. Prigozhin's son is going to step in and lead the Wagner Group, and they're going to be heading back to Ukraine. Yes, the Ukraine war, the attritional rates in the last 48 hours, they're saying that they've exceeded anything that has happened in the war thus far. Russia's lost 68 tanks. Russia is claiming that they killed 24 fighter jets of the Ukrainians in the last 7 days. They're saying that the Russians have lost 70 armored vehicles, or like 130 total vehicles in 48 hours. It's a bloodbath in Advivka. Probably not pronouncing that right, but that is the fast crash course overview. Now, House Resolution 559. This is the big enchilada. Take a look at this. Okay, this was just passed. It was first tabled June 27, 2023, and I believe it was just passed today, declaring it is the policy of the United States that a nuclear Islamic Republic of Iran is not acceptable. Whereas an Islamic Republic of Iran that possesses a nuclear weapon would be unacceptable threat to regional and global security. They go over a bunch of conditions here that would trigger some sort of intervention on the part of the Israelis or the Americans, and they make it abundantly clear that they will come to the aid of Israel if they start some shit, okay? Whereas the United States ambassador to the Vienna office of the United Nations and the IAEA, Laura Holgate, affirmed Iran's production of uranium enrichment up to 60% has no credible peaceful purpose. They claim they've already done that. So many of these conditions have already been met. Already been met for what? Well, going to war with Iran or doing some sort of intervention into the country. How Iran responds is another story. Whereas uranium enrichment to 90% is weapons-grade material, whereas Iran is now in possession of an irreversible and dangerous nuclear knowledge. Resolved that the House of Representatives declares it is the policy of the United States, and this is the most important part, that a nuclear Islamic Republic of Iran is not acceptable, that Iran must not be able to obtain a nuclear weapon under circumstances or conditions, to use all means necessary to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. What do they mean by all means necessary? They mean spending billions and billions of dollars, possibly $1 trillion, trying to fight the Iranians, to sink the Persian Empire, to recognize and support the freedom of action of partners and allies, including Israel, to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Freudian slip there. To recognize and support the freedom of action of partners and allies, including Israel, to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. It has now been reified in this document, and you can guarantee that this is what they're going to do. This is how the Democrats are going to stay in power. Holy shit! This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Oil is still only at $80 a barrel. It's been going down. Can you believe that? So I don't know exactly what the big money, what instruction they have, but somebody's got to know what's coming here. I mean, all of the data points towards a major conflict in this region. Now, maybe they truly do believe that the American military presence there is going to cause Hamas to fold, cause Hezbollah to fold, cause the Yemenis to fold. Why are the Yemenis shooting? Like, they didn't have to get involved in this. Why would they put themselves in the crosshairs like that? Who are they taking their marching orders from? No, I seriously think that all of these Middle Eastern countries, Iran, Yemen, Syria, elements in Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, I think they're starting to realize we can do this. We can do this in the sense that, yeah, we're going to get the shit bombed out of us, right? But they only have so many bombs. And then when Israel is forced to resort to the Samson option because they essentially run out of weapons as the Iron Dome apparently is being depleted, because you're getting not only Yemenis missiles coming in and drones, and yes, I know it's a different technology that the Iron Dome might not be set up for, but Tel Aviv was getting lit up by Hamas rockets yesterday, and it wasn't even a huge barrage. So that tells you that this is an attritional war. You can only carry so many missiles on all these ships that they're sending. Sure, they got a lot. They have a lot of ordnance. For all we know, they got nuclear stuff, okay? And if they're ever going to use nukes, I think they truly believe they could get away with it here, just because of the general sentiment towards this part of the world. We've been conditioned to it by the movies. The inherent sort of Islamophobic nature of certain elements of our society would permit us to potentially use a nuclear weapon here before other places. Now, I'm not saying everybody's like that. It's just a fact that there's an implicit bias towards that neck of the woods. We've been at war with them for so long that I think a lot of people have been inculcated with that point of view. I'm not saying people are overtly racist towards people in Muslim countries, but there's definitely an implicit bias, and I believe we would acquiesce to the use of a nuclear weapon there before we would in other places. Now, that's talking about the West, and I don't think that it's actually going to go as it would maybe 20 years ago if we would have done it. I actually think, as you're seeing with all of the protests going on in the world right now, I think if Israel gets forced to use a nuclear weapon, I just think they're going to be finished. Because what's going to happen is the same old asymmetrical stuff is eventually going to collapse the Israeli project, the Zionist project, and it's just going to be overrun, and there's not going to be much we can do. Now, will we allow that to happen? What lengths will we go to? The Russian envoy was sent to Iran today. What exactly were they talking about? Are the Russians willing to come to the aid of the Iranians? The talk between the Russians and the Israelis has become incredibly more friction in the last few days. Even though I was looking on the RT website today and there was this headline and it said, Russia-Israel relations are stable. Or it was like kind of, that's the kind of headline you'd see if that wasn't the case, right? Trying to reassure, because we know how Russian propaganda works also. They're going to drastically downplay any sort of rift between relations that could cause turbulence down the road. So I do believe that the support for the Israelis is waning. Definitely in China, they've taken them off the map. They don't recognize Israel. They're calling it an occupation. In Russia, they're getting more clear on their condemnations of the lack of humanitarian aid and the calls for a ceasefire and this and that, whatever. So we know the sides have been chosen. We're going to war. House Resolution 559. I don't know. Somebody crunch the numerology on that. Is there some sort of Freemasonic Illuminati type thing? I don't know. But anyways, take a look at this. This is pretty crazy, man. I never knew. I knew that the tunnels were deep. I knew that they were maybe 15, 20 feet deep. Now, I don't think that they're this deep everywhere. This could even be some sort of mine shaft of sorts, a repurposed mine shaft. But apparently these things go down up to 65 yards, okay? And I don't think you can even get that with a nuke, to be brutally honest. Definitely not a tactical nuke, I would say. Maybe a ground burst might cause these things to collapse, but definitely not standard ordnance. 65 yards is deep, man. There's no way. And even the one that they dropped on the refugee camp, if the actual base, if they're able to dig down this deep, because I don't know what the topography is like there or what the geology is like. I don't know how deep, because it's probably not stone, it's sand, I presume. So you could probably dig down deep pretty far. There's no way that refugee camp bomb, in which many civilians lost their lives, achieved much, I don't think. I mean, this is incredibly sophisticated, what we are seeing here. Now, if this is the truth, the Israelis are going to have a lot of problems, man. Because take a look at this. Okay, where should we jump to here? We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, guys. I can't possibly triage it. You just gotta bear with me here. So this is what the Israelis are up to right now. Okay, so we got them coming through the north, we got them coming through the northwest, and then we got them trying to cut right down the middle, a bit off the evacuation area, probably tactically so, because they know that Hamas is probably in that region. The problem is that these tunnels, if they're that deep, how many conduits is there from south to north underneath this region, underneath them? So Israel is tasked with, this is about 6 or 7 kilometers here, which is a fairly sizable chunk of land, when it's really your only focus. It's not like Russia, where, you know, they had to focus on this massive, you know, battlefield, right? Where there's so many points where one side or the other could break through. They had to trench hundreds of miles of trenches and fortifications. So Hamas is going to focus here, and what they're utilizing very effectively, in fact, is drone technology and RPGs and you know, anti-tank weapons. But the drones, I think, are going to be what is so frightening for Israeli troops. We're already seeing tons of footage of bombs being dropped on Israeli soldiers in the same way that you're seeing it with the Ukrainians. Now, Hezbollah apparently were the ones who perfected that style of warfare. Most people don't know that, but it was Hezbollah who initially started using drones for that very purpose. Then, of course, it was incorporated into the Ukraine conflict, which completely changed the face of trench warfare. So the Israelis are going to have a very tough time. I can see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to cut off the south from the north, and then they're going to surround this city, and this is just going to be a killing field, okay? The Israelis have been losing troops left and right. I think what's happening right now, this whole platoon got wiped out when their armored personnel carrier got taken out by some anti-tank weapon or something like that. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to delay the release of numbers of casualties, so not to freak people out. Now, the Israelis are also going to be releasing the 2-hour video to the general public. It's 2 hours of compilation footage of the terrorist attacks on October 7th. Now, I think they're hoping that that is going to win back some support from the global population, which is completely waning. I mean, all of the tricks that they're trying to use right now with the UN, I mean, what's his face? Guterres, the head of the UN Security Council, he just made the chairperson, the Iranian guy. I can't remember what his name is, but was this a flex? Was this out of spite? Was this in response to the fact that the Guterres was taking a lot of heat from the Israelis for his calls for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid? We don't know, but a lot of these stunts that they're doing, you know, wearing the stars and stuff in there, and people are just saying, you know, this is a little too much. You're going a little too far. It's kind of, it's being relegated to the land of clown world for a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying that there's, you know, because the thing is, the way that the Israeli government is handling this situation, they are going to, it's unfortunately probably going to bring more heat on Jewish people around the world, because all the Israeli government really has to do at this point in time, I think, is just make a concerted effort, okay? Make a monumental effort to do the humanitarian thing. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I understand the tricks that Hamas plays. They play a lot of dirty tricks. Somebody said the other day, well, if you could have these tunnels 65 yards deep, why can't you have bunkers for the Palestinian population? And that is a very good point. Why can't you have bunkers for the population? Obviously, their tactic is to utilize the whole human shield thing. So that's undeniable. However, the Israelis have to be very careful here, right? So if I was them and I was trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do, I would make a monumental effort to get aid, to build refugee camps, to make sure women and children had that option to, you know, I would just try to move mountains, put billions of dollars into that if you have to. Because if you don't, it could very well be your undoing. This is not rocket science. I think what happens is you play on easy mode for so long. Like you're in this superior position for so long where anything you say goes, and you just think that people are going to capitulate to your interests. But unfortunately, right now, people are not. Unfortunately for Israelis, that is, people are not. People around the world, and large portions of people, especially young people, like 80% of young people in many Western countries, do not support Israel in this conflict. That is a big, big problem. Now, if they release this 2-hour footage thing that could get some people, talking again. But their propaganda game stinks. It absolutely stinks. Like, you could, like, honestly, if I went in there and they asked me, okay, what do we got to do to win people back? I could tell them exactly what they have to do. And it would be very Machiavellian, but how could they not know this? Like, is it that you get so uncreative by being at the top for so long that you just forget how to think creatively? But maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe there's something they know that I don't. They know the situation down there, but there's that old saying, sometimes you're too close to the problem, and maybe they're right down in the mix. They don't understand how the global repercussions could really backfire in a massive way, especially if they're going to lose an attritional war to the surrounding countries who are going to exhaust their very expensive weapons with more inexpensive weapons. A $500 grenade or rocket or whatever took out 20 Israeli troops or whatever it was in that this platoon of guys who got wrecked. Now, again, take that one with a grain of salt. There's a lot of disinformation going on. We know for sure there was 17 guaranteed kills, but I'm guessing the number is way higher than that. Hezbollah is claiming like 120 just in the north. And understand that everything we know about war, it's so suspect. The fog of war is so thick. You would think, having all this information at our fingertips, but we can't trust the Ukrainian figures when they say they've killed 300,000 Russian soldiers, there's 300,000 casualties and 10,000 tanks. Like, nobody really believes that, right? So the same thing is going to happen here. We're going to run into that same problem. And unless they step up their game, or unless they have some tricks, or unless some American bases get wrecked, or unless there's another attack that elicits a very vengeful response from the general Israeli population, which was backed up by the global population, it's going to take a lot now to shift public opinion. And it almost makes you wonder, like, are you trying to get people against you at this point? Are you trying to? Because it seems like they are. It seems like they want the world against them for some reason, which is insane to me. Anyways, it's just my 2 cents. This is what the Yemenis are saying. We're coming for your warships. They're saying we're coming for your nuclear power plants. They've put out propaganda images that show the Israeli Dimona nuclear power plant in the crosshairs. Hezbollah is saying at 3 p.m. on Friday they're going to give an official address to the world stating their position on what's going on. Now, again, a lot of people have thought from the get-go that the objective was to get the Israelis pinned down in the Gaza Strip with their 300,000 troops or whatever it is. Then Hezbollah is going to start to unload in the north. In 2006, the Israelis got a rude awakening when they fought Hezbollah. Now Hezbollah is probably 10 times better armed. So the shit's going to hit the fan. I mean, the shit's going to hit the fan. The shizzy is about to hit the fizzy. Take a look at this. I hope this letter finds you in good health. Regrettably, with a strong sense of duty, I write to inform you a decision that I had to make regarding the Marine Corps' 248th ball, scheduled for November 16, 2023, due to unforeseen operational commitments and the nature of our current mission. It is with great regret that we must cancel this year's event. Now remember, before on one of the warships that was deployed, the troops were unexpectedly given what many people were equating to a last meal. Like, it was like lobster. It was like the top stuff that Steve, the wholesale freeze-dry guy, sells, right? Like the premium stuff, like crab and all this stuff. And usually that is a sign that your deployment is going to be extended, or that they want something for you. Because whenever they got to boost morale, they know that they can do it through the food. The cook is the center of any work site when you're in a remote work site like that. So this is just another sign that they're getting ready to do some shit. And yeah, it's coming, man. So get ready. I mean, seriously, right now, do whatever you can, because oil could go through the roof. Now, they might manipulate the market somehow to make that hot. They might have some deal with Saudi Arabia, or Saudi Arabia is going to open the spigot a bit more, if they even can. Some people doubt that. Some people are saying that the reason why the Saudis aren't producing more oil is because they simply can't, and they've reached peak production there. Other people are saying, no, they're just manipulating the markets with OPEC. But of course, they have to work with the Russians as well, who are also in OPEC. So this is a situation where they could try to manipulate things for a while. But if they go to war with Iran, I mean, that is massive. That will suck the entire world into a conflict. There's a reason why the Chinese have the highest levels of food stockpiled in history. There's a reason why the North Koreans are rushing to restock and refill their own strategic food reserves by the end of November. Okay, there's a reason why the North Koreans are sending weapons to Hamas, more weapons, and are open about it. I tell you, man, this is... You guys don't even realize, but I'm sick right now, okay? I came down with some kind of fever. I got jacked up on Tylenol to do this video because it is that important. Like, this is like math class at this point. If you miss a day, you're screwed. Now, this is what's going on in China right now, okay? These are all the incursions, and I believe this is this is just October, okay? But October. So I don't know how this compares to months gone by, but I'm guessing it's up there. Now, China's strategy at this point in time, remember, China wrote The Art of War. And what is that cardinal rule in The Art of War? Let your plans be as silent as night and strike like a thunderbolt. What China is trying to do with this, number one, they're trying to deplete the Taiwanese defensive systems. Every time that China scrambles these jets and skirts the international boundaries there of Taiwan's airspace, Taiwan has to scramble jets. They put mileage on their planes that are limited. They have to get their, missile defense operational and all this stuff. So it depletes. It's a slow way of attriting, and it also creates confusion because Taiwan never knows, is this just an exercise? It gets them kind of acclimated to these frequent incursions, so they just think it's no big deal. Then one of these days, it's just going to seem like no big deal. Oh, just another big wave of planes, no big deal. But then it's going to be real, and another wave is going to come, and another wave is going to come, and the aircraft carriers that are currently parked not too far from here are going to begin a blockade. Now, most people think it's going to be a blockade first. Maybe. How possible is that? Taiwan is a massive landmass. It looks small, but it's big. Also, you have to consider all of the traffic, the goods that traverse the Taiwan Strait, something like 50% of global goods. It's some ridiculous number like that that would have to be rerouted, if even possible. Do we suspend trade with China? All of this shit could and will happen at some point. So all I'm saying is, you better be prepping like there ain't no tomorrow. Everybody's asking, well, yeah, it hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Well, just wait, man, just wait. Now, the one saving grace with Ukraine, again, we are seeing insanely high temperatures. I know not in North America, not recently, especially not here. We've had some record low temperatures here, but that's because the jet stream is all effed up. I'm not going to explain why the jet stream is effed up, but it's effed up because the planet is heating up, okay? It's just a reality. I don't like the World Economic Forum. I've got no love for Klaus Schwab. I don't care about carbon taxes. I don't think that's the solution, so let's just get that out of the way. The planet's fucking warming, okay? It is what it is. Take a look at this. All of this red, that is higher than average temperatures. The Arctic currently above 5 degrees C. Now, the good thing about this, especially in Europe, is that that is going to reduce the prices of gas, meaning that Europe's economy is not going to feel as much pain. Now, how that could backfire in terms of the war, if Europe is not feeling as much pain from the war, they might want to support the war even more. Europe is going to have to support the war because the United States apparently is kind of waffling on the issue, although I still do think that they're going to have their way. By hook or by crook, they're going to get that $65 billion into Ukraine some way, somehow, because this is all a game of Axis and allies. You ever played that game? That's exactly what is going on right now. If they give a few inches up here, the Russians are going to steamroll right through. Russians right now, they're starting to say, well, there's some elements within the transatlantic alliance that are trying to come to us and make some sort of peace deal, or they're kind of floating it out there. But the Russians are saying, you know what? We're not going to buy it because we know what you're trying to do. You're trying to buy time so you can build up again. So what the Russians are likely going to do is they're going to annex another 4 territories. They don't want the whole country because that would be just too much of a burden. And then you'd be endlessly tasked with, having to deal with guerrilla warfare in oblasts that were primarily pro-Ukrainian. So they don't want the pro-Ukrainian Oblast, but they do want to take over the ones that have a large contingent of Russian populations, or ones that they think they can lock down, and ones that are strategic enough to be worth the investment of constant troops. Okay, so yes, this plays a role. This plays a very, very big role in what is about to happen. So don't ignore it. Now, apparently, in Rostov-on-Don, they've set up a new S-400 installation. Some people are thinking that this might have something to do. So this is the range of this new installation, okay? So some people think this may or may not have something to do with what's going on in the Mediterranean Sea. Judging by this map, it doesn't look as though those missiles are going to be able to reach that far. We also have other S-400s throughout Crimea. So, but it's interesting that this is coming here now. Why would they be putting that there now? Do they actually think that the Ukrainians are going to be making some sort of progress in the future, or is this just another fail-safe? Perhaps. We have the U.S. Scheduled Minuteman missile launch. Apparently it was a fail, okay? There was something that happened in the first stage, I believe, first uncontrolled descent after jettison. And something happened here, I think, that maybe there was an error and flew off course, and it wasn't able to reach its apogee, or whatever they call it. So, I mean, you know, it's just another sign that the U.S. nuclear arsenal is aging. And Joel Skousen made a very, very important point that I hadn't thought of before. He said that Russia is only going to do a primary nuclear strike, or a preemptive nuclear strike, when they can amass the force to occupy. Because if they can't occupy, what they're going to do, and this is in line with what Peter Vincent Pry was saying, you're not going to attack the cities first. So, contrary to popular belief, if there was a nuclear war, it's not that they're going to just start lobbing nukes at the major cities. They might for a few, like if you're in Washington, D.C., or if you're in a city which is, you know, in some way strategic to national security interests, then you might be taken out. But chances are what they're going to do is they're going to focus strictly on military installations, completely wipe out the military and any capability of us to rebuild our military. Then what they're going to say is they're going to say, we want a formal surrender, a declaration of surrender by your country, or we are going to start taking out cities one by one. And then when we waffle a bit on that, they're going to take out a city, okay? Now, this all assumes that they're able to get the preemptive strike, and whatever sort of retaliatory strike we were able to let off didn't completely destroy them. But this is the idea. So Skousen thinks that they have to wait until the Chinese are ready not only building their nuclear arsenal, but also building up their military just in general. So he predicts that if the big enchilada is going to come before 2027. He's talking about full-blown war with the Chinese, because everybody's focused on the Middle East and Russia. China has a $30 trillion GDP, okay? Russia's GDP is 2-point-something trillion. We don't know how many nukes they have. We don't know how capable they are. We do know that China can build whole bridges, buildings in a couple days, okay? These people with their collectivist mindset, I would not be surprised if they just have vast underground networks, if they're fully prepared for nuclear Armageddon, and they can do it in record time. They just have a better work ethic. They're not as spoiled. I mean, even their TikTok rendition of TikTok that they have there is monitored, so it doesn't dumb people down like it does here. So I'm not a China fanboy, or I'm not a Russophile or anything like that, but those guys, those authoritarian societies, they are more prepared than we are to ride out any kind of storm, okay? So what I'm saying here, it's all connected, and the playing pieces are starting to really fortify their alliances even more. That's become abundantly clear, with North Korea explicitly stating that they're going to start shipping weapons to Hamas. I mean, that's crazy. So there we go. I think that's the gist of it, guys. We got House Resolution 559. The Yemenis are striking Israel. The Yemenis are at war with Israel. Make no mistake, you wouldn't have 6 refueling planes above Saudi Arabia, and you still got these OSINT guys with their mouths open wondering, well, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's, yeah, maybe just doing an exercise around Saudi Arabia. And then, they're going to do an airstrike, and they're going to be like, airstrike on Saudi Arabia. And, oh, it's a declaration of war. Really? Really? You couldn't infer that from what was going on Flight Radar? Come on, guys. Like, this is the problem here, man. Like, you take a little, it's this deductive reasoning that needs complete 100% confirmation. There comes a point where you got to roll the dice and you got to take a leap and you got to confidently make a prediction, because at this point in time, it's all leaning in that direction. I just feel it in the air at this point in time. The Iraqi resistance is pledging to eliminate all American troops. Iraqi resistance pledged to eliminate all American and foreign forces from Iraq. So they got so many different theaters of conflict popping up here. You still have the Syria situation. You have the 100,000 strong Hezbollah army with their 200,000 missiles coming down the pike. You have Hezbollah sending a message to Hamas. Now, I'm not going to read this all, but here's the gist of it. They say, and this is just at the tail end, they go over this long spiel where they say that, I understand your suffering, blah, blah, blah. Be certain that your martyrs and our martyrs are the path to Jerusalem until the day of total conquest. So that's the objective right there. The objective is Hezbollah and Hamas have the same objective, in spite of the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong about this, I think they're 2 different sects of Islam. One are Sunnis, one are Shiites. At least I know that is the case with Iran. I could be wrong about that. But what you're seeing here is a unification of Islam against what they view as political Zionism, okay? And they're shooting down fairly sophisticated drones. Remember, it was, 13 years ago today or something to that effect that the Iranians hacked a U.S. drone. The Iranian cyber capabilities are being revered at this point and being lauded as much more capable as previously thought. So they're saying that they're on par with some of what the Russians can offer. So we're going to see cyber attacks. Now, should we go to this? Should I do this again? Every time I read emails, I get in trouble half the time. I'm going to read one. Now, I take these emails with a grain of salt. I read one the other day, and as I stated, as I was reading it, I'm like, this very well could be bullshit, okay? And I always give that disclaimer. This one makes sense. It maps on to everything that we've been talking about here, and I would not be surprised if the sleeper cells that currently reside in Western society will become synchronistically activated. We have this email from this intelligence analyst. He claims that I and his team's clients included the United States government, the British government, Israeli government, Saudi Arabia, NEOM, Microsoft, Dell, General Motors. I'm guessing this guy's in cyber, possibly. Rarely I can guarantee the intelligence. Many times just releasing it in the wild can stop a false flag or a genuine attack. But with as close to 100% as possible, there will, he claims, be multiple terrorist attacks in the USA. Now again, the last email I read on here left a bad taste in my mouth. This guy could be telling me the truth. I really don't know. Does it really matter at this point? Do we even need this sort of confirmation? I don't think so, because it just makes perfect sense. I mean, we live in a glass house in North America. Anybody can get in. Anybody can do anything they want while they're in here, which is great. It's the land of the free, home of the brave, blah, 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 blah. But that also is a double-edged sword, right? When it comes to asymmetrical warfare. That means they could start cutting power lines. They could start blowing up critical infrastructure. They could start wreaking havoc. Now, again, one of the reasons why I was suspicious of this email, I think there is also an agenda right now to put out the whole terrorist narrative, just like we've seen at the turn of the century, so they can usher in something major crackdown on our civil liberties. You know that's coming. Patriot Act 2.0, the NSA, the CIA, the whole 9 yards, they're going to double down this time. But they have to do this first. They have to scare the shit out of people. They got to send out anthrax in the mail and all that stuff, right? So that's why I'm very skeptical of this email. Are they wanting me to read this so that I scare people and they get worried? I mean, it does make perfect sense that we are sitting ducks here. You know, I mean, it would not be hard to do half of this stuff. I mean, look at the guy who was off his meds or whatever the other day, how much havoc he wreaked. And I don't even think he thought he would get that far, judging by the fact that he had no mask or anything like that. He didn't know he was going to be able to take out that many people and not get caught for that extended period of time. So imagine a committed group of people, just like we seen with Hamas on October 7th. Now imagine that happening across the United States, where firearms are readily accessible. You want to see a crackdown on Second Amendment rights and a justification to do it? Just wait. Although I don't think it's going to go, because a lot of the Republicans are the ones who are pushing for war in the Middle East, and a lot of their voting base is also very pro-2A. The attacks will come in waves for the next 14 months, he says. Hundreds of thousands of CCP saboteurs trained to attack our electrical grid, poison our water supply, destroy our railways, our main highway arteries. Additionally, at least 1 million, possibly 2 million terrorists are already here from the following countries, he claims. And he calls it Palestine. Interesting. Palestine, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. I'm sure he's, referring to the West Bank. But Qatar, Lebanon, Iran, Somalia, etc., and they're all extremely well funded. And get this, the Biden administration, working with the UN, has given them debit cards that are reloaded. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I mean, that's where they kind of lose me, when they get political with it. But I'm sure some of you guys will take that to the bank. I'm not saying you should. Keep an open mind. I was going to talk a bit about the sophistication of Hezbollah propaganda. It's really on par with, actually, it's almost better than the Z campaign that the Russians are using. That campaign doesn't get enough credit for how genius it is, because they're trying to resonate with the youth. So they make the cool graphics and the Z, and it's an easy symbol for somebody to go and plaster on a wall somewhere, and that's really what you want if you're trying to run a propaganda campaign like that. Hezbollah flag that they got, it's too busy. They got to minimize that a bit. They need a better graphics artist. They need a better propagandist to help them out with that, because I should just work for both sides and just see what happens. Anyways, I said that the Saudi minister is in D.C. Saudi Arabia has given the green light for the deployment of U.S. air defense systems in the country to protect Israel from external attacks. So that's where you know where their allegiance lies. The House of Saud is, all they care about is money, right? Jordan expels the Israeli ambassador. That's cosmetic as well. It's probably just to appease their largely Palestinian diaspora that lives there. North Korea sending weapons, Egyptian army heading over there. And I think that's about all I got to talk about today, folks. Guys, what more do I need to say? But, I gotta keep on this, because if I take a day off, it's like so much happens every day now. It is moving at a breakneck speed. Look at how fast half of the frickin' warships in the U.S. fleet descended upon this region. I mean, that tells you that they maybe have intelligence that this is some coordinated, large-scale plan that is being played out, and at the behest of the Iranians, or possibly even the Russians, or who knows. But this is big. This is big, and this should not be understated. And when I walk around town, nobody knows what's going on right now. People just think Palestine, Israel. Most people have no idea, the history of Palestine, Israel. So 95% of people know. You might think that they know, but even people who you think are quite well educated on the topic really lack a fundamental understanding of what's going on. And that is freaking scary, okay? So what this means is that this is almost on the level of stock picking advice right now. Like I'm giving you information, and this is readily available information. The information is there to make the inference that some big shit is about to go down that is going to affect the markets. Now, if you play your cards right, you can maybe make that work out for you in a monetary sense. In the very least, you can get ahead of it in a prepping sense if this descends into all-out Mad Max chaos, which it very well could. This COVID thing, I always go back to what Survival Lily YouTube channel on here told me when the pandemic started. She said that COVID was like the wound, okay, that opened up, and it infected everything else in our globalized world. So it wasn't necessarily that in itself brought the world down, although it did definitely have lots of economic repercussions, created a lot of division. But that one thing, it let in this virus of economic contraction and austerity, which has now just festered into this geopolitical conflict that we are seeing ensuing and spreading all around the world. And I always think about that because it's incredible how, that was like the first domino. It wasn't the first, but, that was it. And I think we all remember, if you think back to, where were you when what's-his-face said that it was a global pandemic? I remember exactly where I was. It was like a flashbulb moment for me. I was packing orders, back when we had just a tiny warehouse. And I was packing orders, and I remember distinctly how I felt because I knew this was it. The world was about to change. Even if this wasn't a virus that had a high fatality rate, I just knew that this was a turning point, okay? And anyways, I got to get some rest because we got to do this all over again tomorrow. Take care, my friends. Canadian Prepper out.